Say that one more time.
Three more.
Madison's testing. Should be alright.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back.
One day I'll just like call it out.
Alright, guys, it's a marvelous Monday. It is a marvelous Monday, and I left my iPad without my little notes on it on what I want to talk about today as we go to our new unit on cellular energetics. Alright, so this unit starts off, in this unit we're actually going to cover chapter 8, 9, and 10. Not necessarily in that order. We'll cover the chapter on metabolism. That's the sound I was going for. That's the one. Wait, I lost it. Hey, chill out. Can't hear it. I think it's me. I think y'all fine. I think it's just me. I can't hear myself right. Alright, anyway, so we're going to cover metabolism, photosynthesis, and cellular respiration, okay? With this unit, there is a project. It's a tic-tac-toe project. I'll put all the details in Canvas later on today, and we'll talk more about it next block. It'll be due either December or January, so you have time.
Oh, is it that? Is it big?
It's 3 parts, and one part is, and some of you may have seen students working on it last year, where you have to make a movie, a mini movie. Yeah, so, and yeah, but I'll explain more. But there's 3 parts to it. Everybody has to be in you'll be divided into groups of 5. Everybody has to be in the mini movie, and then you guys can decide who's going to work on the other 2. Like, y'all can split the other 2 projects in half, or however, but dang it, I don't need you to be low battery now. So yeah, but again, you have time because we have to actually cover photosynthesis and cellular respiration in order for you to actually be able to complete the project. So, hello.
It could be there's like no reverb.
It's, I don't know what it is, but it's not, it doesn't sound, I mean, it's on.
Speak.
It just,
Turn into that and then speak. See if it's reflecting.
hello? There we go. Wait, I don't want it in my mouth.
Pull that down some so it's like.
Pull what down? So my hair?
No. Move the face shield like down some.
It's fine. As long as y'all can hear me, I'm okay. It's just so annoying. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about metabolism. Okay, so tell me, what does this word mean to you?
It's what keeps me from being fat.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Ha, joke's on me. All right, anyway, metabolism. Like, seriously, what do you think it is? What do you think metabolism is? Other than, most people say that though, is what keeps you from being fat. Like, but what do you, I mean, other than that, do you have any ideas of what metabolism actually is?
Like on like
How fast
the rate of your body breaking down and like.
Okay, typically we associate it with that, but metabolism is actually the totality of the chemical reactions of an organism. So it's not just the breaking down, it's the breaking down and the building up. So what metabolism does is metabolism actually transforms matter and energy. Okay, so metabolism is actually going to transform matter and energy, and matter and energy can be transformed in more than one way. Now, we always think about the breaking down when we say metabolism, but what about the building up? Okay, there's 2 types of metabolism. The 2 types include catabolism and anabolism.
What chapter are we on?
This is chapter 8. Alright, so the 2 types include catabolism and anabolism. Say cata breaks, anabuilds. Alright, so like a catastrophe, right? So a catastrophe, things are being broken down. So in catabolism, this is where we have the actual breakdown. this is when things are going to be broken down. So this is my breakdown with metabolism. This is what we normally think about when we say metabolism. What we're actually usually referencing, we're talking about it in reference to our actual digestive system, we're usually referencing catabolism. All right? Anabolism is an actual building up. So, remember I said this is a cell energy, right? So we're talking about the cells, and we're going to reference two processes. These are not the only two processes, but these are two extremely important processes. And those two processes are photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Now, photosynthesis and cellular respiration utilize two of the cell organelles that we learned about in the last unit, and those are the energy transformers, okay? The chloroplast and the mitochondria. Now, photosynthesis is able to transform light energy into chemical energy and store it in the bonds of sugars as it builds up simple sugars. So, would photosynthesis fall under anabolism or catabolism? Anabolism, exactly, because we're building simple sugars. So, an example of an anabolic process would be photosynthesis. Now, the mitochondria is able to break down those sugars and extract the energy from them and transfer them to the molecule ATP. So, would cellular respiration be classified as an anabolic or a catabolic process? Catabolic, because it is actually breaking down molecules. All right, so first we're going to learn about the different types of energy and things like that, but then we're going to examine those two processes more closely, and that's photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Now, a metabolic pathway is a pathway in metabolism that begins with a specific molecule and ends with a different molecule, okay? So a metabolic pathway is how you get from a substrate or a reactant to a product. Now, in metabolism, your metabolic pathway, so I'm going to start with A, and A is going to be transformed to B, and B is going to be transformed to C, and then C will be transformed to my end product, okay? So, this is a metabolic pathway, okay? There's going to be steps, and what's going to happen is this is reaction 1. So, to get from A to B, I have reaction 1. To get from B to C, there's going to be reaction 2. To get from C to the final end product, then I'll have reaction 3. At each one of these reactions, there's also going to be a specific enzyme that catalyzes this reaction. So reaction 1 is catalyzed by enzyme 1. Reaction 2 is catalyzed by enzyme 2. Reaction 3 is going to be catalyzed by enzyme 3, so forth and so on. So a metabolic pathway is a pathway that starts with a specific molecule and ends with a specific product. Okay, so you have a specific reactant and a specific product. Doesn't necessarily have to be only 3 reactions. For instance, in cellular respiration has 3 distinct parts. Okay, you have glycolysis, you have the Krebs cycle, and you have oxidative phosphorylation. Glycolysis itself happens in a series of 10 steps. Why did I say 12? Happens in a series of 10 steps. There's 5 in the energy investment phase and 5 in the energy yielding phase of glycolysis. So that one catabolic pathway is for cellular respiration. That first part of glycolysis is actually 10 steps. So you would start with glucose and you end with pyruvate or pyruvic acid. But in order to get from glucose to pyruvate, it takes 10 steps. And if each step, so that's 10 reactions, and each reaction has its own enzymes. So there's 10 different enzymes. Okay? Y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, yep, it's the first of the month. Now, let's talk about these two words right here. What did I tell you Kata does? It breaks down. And what does Anna do? It builds up. All right, now, imagine you had a glow stick. When you break it, what happens? And what's that glow an example of?
Neon.
When you see that glow, what does it make you think of?
Catabolic reaction.
No, it don't. What it?
Light nighttime party.
All right, but what's the light a representative of? Energy. Okay. So when you broke it, I mean, did you see the energy before you broke it? So when you broke it, what happened with the energy? It was released. Okay. So if kata breaks, if I break it and I actually see or release the energy, a catabolic process is going to result in a net energy release.
I was thinking exothermic.
All right, now, if energy is released, then that is also called an exothermic reaction. Exothermic, yeah, that extra dot up there.
Exothermic.
Did I spell it? Oh.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, yeah, that's a little extra dot. And this is also what we call exergonic.
So those are the same words?
Same thing. Means the same thing. Alright, so a catabolic reaction is a reaction where energy is going to be released. And if energy is released, then we say that it's exothermic, exergonic. Okay? Now, if that's what a catabolic reaction does, then what do you think an anabolic reaction does?
Takes energy gain.
Right, it absorbs energy. Right? So energy must be put into the system. So there is an energy gain. Alright, so if it absorbs energy, then is it exothermic or endothermic? Endothermic. So it is endogonic. Okay? So, which one of these do you think happens more readily?
Anabolic.
Which one? Catabolic.
Oh.
Why? Do you have to put anything extra into it to make it happen? No. It breaks and then it releases energy, okay? So a catabolic reaction is going to happen. So this is what we call, give me 1 second. This is what we call a spontaneous reaction. Anabolic reactions, on the other hand, are what we call non-spontaneous, and I will explain why in a minute after I take your question. What's up?
What about ionization energy?
We can talk about that.
Okay.
We're talking about chemical processes in the body. All right? Try not to get too chemistry on this one, okay? We're just looking at the overall concepts. All right, now, so we're talking about what's happening with this word right here. But what is that? What is energy? Anybody? Other than Ms. Young? What is energy? Come on now, y'all knew the definition of energy in 4th grade. What's energy? What is energy, guys?
The
Keep going.
Yeah, that's kind of
to
right.
live and
Something that all matter gives off.
Ability to work.
There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Energy is the ability to cause change or do work. That's what energy is. It's the ability to cause change or do work. Now, there's different types of energy, and you can transform between the different types of energy. The energy of motion is called what? Kinetic energy. The energy of motion is kinetic energy. Now, when those motions, and thermal energy is just a kinetic energy that has to deal with the randomness of those motions, okay? That's what thermal energy is. What about the energy of position or structure? What type of energy is that? Potential energy, right? Now, kinetic energy is actually the energy that's going to be able to actually not kinetic energy. Some types of energy are able to actually do work, okay? So, potential energy varies, right? Which one has more potential? Point A or point B?
Point B.
Point B. That's the energy of position. All right? Now, we know that when we're talking about cells, we know that structure dictates function. So, potential energy also comes in the structure of the molecule. Okay, so how does this structure play a part in its ability to actually do some types of work? Now, thermodynamics is the study of energy transformations, okay? Thermodynamics. There's 2 laws that you need to know for this class. What's the first law of thermodynamics? Y'all took chemistry.
Matter cannot be created.
Not matter. We're not talking about matter. We're talking about
Energy.
energy. Energy cannot be what?
Created or destroyed.
Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It is only transferred or transformed. Okay? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is only transferred or transformed. Also known as the law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So what is the source of all energy on this earth, in this ecosystem? Where does all the energy come from?
Other energy.
The sun. The source of all energy on earth is the sun. Okay? Now, energy enters an ecosystem as light energy and exits as heat. Energy transfers are one directional. It's not cyclic like matter. We don't recycle it like in those biogeochemical cycles with water and oxygen and things like that. Energy transfer is one directional. Every time energy is transferred or transformed, some of it is lost to the atmosphere to the environment in the form of heat. Okay? Now, that brings us to the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that anytime energy is transferred or transformed, there is an increase in entropy. And what does entropy mean?
Disruption of the system.
Disorder of the system. Disorder, okay? Entropy equals disorder. Now, let's talk about why. Every time energy is transferred or transformed, what's happening again?
More is giving up. More is being lost.
Heat is
Being lost as what? Heat. What does heat, so you got to think this is microscopic, not macro. And you think on a microscopic level. What happens to molecules when you increase the heat?
They move faster.
They move faster. The faster they move, the more random their movements. So if I increase the randomness of the movements, then I am therefore increasing the disorder. So even as organisms become more ordered, cells become tissues, tissues become organs, organs become organ systems become organisms. Even as organisms become more ordered, you know, a cell takes random parts and put it together to make a cell. There's more order. The whole universe becomes more disordered. Okay? The second law of thermodynamics states that every time energy is transferred or transformed, the universe increases in entropy, not the system. Okay? Not the system. Now, cells are a system. We are a system. There's two types of systems. The two types of systems include an open system and a closed system. All right? Open systems and closed systems. Closed systems are also called isolated systems sometimes. Now, an open system has the ability to exchange energy and matter with its environment. Okay? An open system has the ability to take in energy and matter and release energy and matter. There's an exchange of energy and matter with its environment. That's what an open system is. A closed system has what it has on the inside. Open systems do not reach equilibrium. Closed systems reach equilibrium. Why is that important? Because you can only do work as you're moving towards equilibrium. Once you reach equilibrium, you can no longer do work.
So there's no more energy once it's equilibrium?
Right.
Potential.
There's no more potential energy once you reach equilibrium.
Because it's still moving, there's just no more possible energy that can be produced?
There's nothing to do work.
Okay.
Right. So, a system can only do work as it nears equilibrium. Open systems don't reach equilibrium. As long as energy is coming in and energy is flowing out, it does not reach equilibrium. Closed systems do. Which one do you think represents a cell? An open system or a closed system?
Open.
Open.
Because of the membrane.
The membrane allows for constant exchange. Right. The plasma membrane allows for constant exchange. So, organisms are open systems. Cells are open systems. So there is an exchange of energy and matter with the surroundings. So this is like the difference. Like if this was a thermos and you had some soup in here that was hot and you never like heat it up again, what's going to happen to that soup eventually? It's going to get cold. And if there's no more energy going into it, will that soup ever get hot again? No. Okay? So once that energy that is in there, once those molecules stop moving that fast, because remember thermal energy is how fast and how random these molecules are moving. So once they slow down, they've slowed down. Okay? What happens to an open system if it does reach, what do you think would happen to an open system if it does reach equilibrium?
It dies.
It would die. Death. Even in death, we're still doing things, guys, because we're breaking down, right? We're still exchanging. Even in death, as you decay, you're still putting nutrients back into the environment. So, yeah. All right, so how does energy enter our ecosystem again? In what form?
Heat.
It exits as heat. It enters as light, and it exits as heat. Now, why do we care about all this in biology? Because biologists are constantly trying to figure out which processes in the body are spontaneous and which ones are non-spontaneous. So what do I mean by spontaneous? What's a spontaneous reaction?
Cellular respiration.
Okay, we know that's an example, but what do I mean by a spontaneous reaction?
Exothermic.
It doesn't need anything to
Exothermic.
happen.
What else?
It doesn't need anything to happen.
It is a breakdown.
Okay, so it's an energy releaser, right? And the cells are smart. You know what the cells do? Since endergonic reactions or non-spontaneous reactions require the input of energy, cells do what's known as energy coupling. And energy coupling you couple a spontaneous reaction with a non-spontaneous reaction. So the energy that is released from the non-spontaneous can be used to drive the energy released from the spontaneous can be used to drive the non-spontaneous. So if this one is putting energy out and this one needs to absorb energy, you couple the reactions together so that the exergonic reaction, the energy that is released, can be absorbed by the endergonic reaction. That's called energy coupling. Now, the molecule that is used most often by cells for energy coupling is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP can undergo hydrolysis to release energy, and the energy released from ATP is used to drive non-spontaneous endergonic reactions. ATP is a molecule that's going to be most often coupled with non-spontaneous reactions. So now the energy we're talking about, guys, is the free energy. Do y'all know what free energy is? Ever heard of Gibbs free energy? Took chemistry, AP Chem probably heard of Gibbs free energy. All right, so the free energy, when we say free energy is the energy that is available to do work, okay? Free energy is represented by delta G. So how we figure out if something is spontaneous or non-spontaneous is we measure the change in free energy. Y'all do know that the delta sign means a change in, right? Just want to make sure. We measure the change in free energy. There's a formula for that. Delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. No, you don't have to memorize the formula. It is on the formula sheet, but you need to know what these things mean. All right, so delta G is your free energy. This is your Gibbs free energy. So this is the amount of energy that is available to do work. Delta H is going to be your enthalpy. How I remember that delta H is enthalpy and not entropy. See that little H right there? H goes with H, people. H goes with H. All right. This T is your temp. And your temperature has to be in Kelvin. How do I convert Celsius to Kelvin?
Plus 273.
273.15 in here. All right. We go 273.15. Just make sure you put the 0.15 because it can cause a little bit of rounding differences if you just do 273. All right. And this S is your entropy or your disorder. Okay. Now, if you're doing a calculation, you will plug in values. Why do I care? Okay, so I'm plugging in the values. What's the point? I figure out what delta G is. Well, what we know is that when delta G, or the change in free energy, is less than 0, then this is a spontaneous reaction. When delta G is greater than 0, this is a non-spontaneous reaction. And when delta G is 0, that reaction is at equilibrium. Okay? So, this is why we care. Because spontaneous reactions release energy. And spontaneous reactions are more likely going to be coupled with non-spontaneous reactions. Now, here's my question to you. Let's say a non-spontaneous reaction in the cell requires 27 kilocalories of energy to go. Okay? This reaction requires an input of 27 kilocalories of energy. A spontaneous reaction releases 27 kcals of energy. when it undergoes hydrolysis. Can this spontaneous reaction be used to drive this non-spontaneous reaction? Yes or no? And why? Or why not?
Because it's an equilibrium. Well,
They're not the same reaction. So this is a reaction that's happening on its own, and it released that much energy. This reaction needs to go, but it requires that much energy to go in. So can this reaction drive this reaction?
Yes.
yes. No.
I heard yes and I heard no.
Yes.
Okay, why do you say yes?
Because it releases enough energy to drive the other reaction.
Okay, why do you say no?
Because there's not enough energy to drive the reaction.
Why?
Because 27 is less than 37.
That's 27 and 27.
Just
Oh,
entropy
there's
thing,
27.
or
Well,
whatever.
then yes.
All right, now let me ask you this question. Every time there's an energy transfer
Yeah.
or transformation,
Energy is lost.
energy is lost as what?
Entropy.
So it needs more
Is
than
heat.
27.
Heat.
So, if this is what it releases, is that the amount that's going to be available to do work?
No.
No. So, in order for an exergonic reaction to drive an endergonic reaction, it must release more energy than is needed for the endergonic reaction, because every energy transformation and transfer results in a loss of energy in the form of heat. Not all of this energy will be available to do work. Okay? Are we clear? So, this would need to be greater than 27. Are we going to quantify exactly how much? No, we're not, because different reactions require different amounts, and we're not getting into specific reactions. What we want to know is the concept that an exergonic reaction coupled with an endergonic reaction must release more energy than what is needed to drive the endergonic reaction. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. All right, so now let's look at how that would look. So this is A, and this is B. La 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 la. La 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 la. Da da da. La 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 la. La la la. La la la.
Is this going in the video?
Yeah, it is in the
It is in the video, and I just realized I was recording. I'm so sorry. Ray, why did you say something earlier? All right. Huh?
I keep forgetting that that's going on.
Me too.
I shouldn't talk.
All right, so one of these, delta G, is less than 0. The other one, delta G, is greater than 0. One is exergonic, one is endergonic. One is exothermic, one is endothermic. One is spontaneous, one is non-spontaneous. One is catabolic and one is anabolic. Let's classify. All right, so A, let's talk about the free energy first, delta G. Is it greater than or less than 0?
less than 0.
It's less than 0. And let's talk about how we know this. So this is my available free energy, right? So the change in free energy is going to be less than 0 because there is more energy in the reactants than there is in the product. So there was a loss in the amount of energy. My energy level went from here to here. That's a decrease, and a decrease is less than 0. So delta G is negative. Question when we finish this year. All right, so there is a decrease in the amount of energy that is available to do work. So in this case, delta G is less than 0. Now, since there is a decrease in the amount of energy, what clearly happened? Was energy absorbed or was it released?
Release.
Energy was released. So my energy was released. And since energy is released, is that going to be endergonic or exergonic? Exergonic. All right, so exergonic. And then if it's exergonic, that also lets me know, is it endothermic or exothermic? It's going to be exothermic. All right, next thing, is this going to be spontaneous or non-spontaneous? This is going to be spontaneous. So when delta G is less than 0, delta G is negative, that lets me know this is an exergonic, exothermic, spontaneous energy releasing process. So is this going to be catabolic or anabolic? Catabolic, because cata breaks, and when you break, you release energy. These terms go together. Now, why? Why is the energy being released? Why is this a spontaneous reaction? Because the more energy something has, the more unstable it is, and everything is moving towards a point of stability. The higher the free energy, the more unstable it is. Okay? So as you release free energy, as the free energy decreases, the stability increases. And the goal is to be more stable with everything except for my mental health. I just can't get there. I'm sorry. All right. But anyway, as there is a release of energy, as free energy goes down, stability goes up. All right. Now, over here, what's delta G?
Greater than 0.
Delta G is greater than 0.
Takes more energy.
So it was energy released or absorbed.
Absorb.
Energy is absorbed. I meant to write that in green, but and I can't do it. I gotta write it in green. I'm sorry. Red to me is a release and green is an absorption. All right. Endergonic or exergonic? Endergonic. Endothermic or exothermic? Endothermic. Absorbing energy from the surroundings, making the surrounding area colder. All right. Spontaneous or non-spontaneous?
Non-spontaneous.
Non-spontaneous. So will we expect to see this in a catabolic or an anabolic reaction? Anabolic. Let's think about it in terms of cellular respiration and photosynthesis. Does photosynthesis absorb energy from the surroundings? Yes, it does. All right. Does it store that energy into something else? Yes, it does. Is the change in free energy greater than 0, meaning that the products that went in have more energy? I'm sorry, the reactants that went in have less energy than the products that came out? Yes, it does. So photosynthesis, this applies. What about cellular respiration? All right. The things that come in have more energy than the products that you're going to end up with at the end, because as this is being broken down, as you're breaking down the sugars, not all of that energy is going to actually end up in ATP, because with each reaction, some of that energy is going to be released in the form of what is energy release? Heat. So the energy that starts off in one glucose molecule is not the amount of energy that ends up in the 30 plus ATP molecules that you end up with at the end of aerobic cellular respiration. There is a decrease in the amount of available energy. All right. Let's see. Oh, my iPad died on me. Last thing, let's talk about ATP. And
wait, hold on. Does that mean that the graph B is more stable than graph A?
No. B is actually less stable because there was an increase in energy, and the higher the free energy, the less stable you are.
I thought you potential energy, right?
Think about potential energy. Higher up, more unstable.
Oh.
As it comes down,
Yeah.
it reaches a point of
I
stability.
thought you were like just talking about the react. Okay, never mind.
Oh.
I thought you. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Now.
You got it now?
Yeah.
No problem. Ask questions if you need to, child. It don't bother me at all. All right, let's talk about this molecule, adenosine triphosphate. What is adenosine triphosphate?
Adenine,
Thank you.
bonded to 3-phosphate ends.
And what else?
A sugar.
What sugar?
Pentose?
Which pentose?
1.
No. Mono.
Try pentose. I don't know.
A single carbon.
Right, okay.
We're just guessing.
The fourth carbon on it. Undo it.
Again.
Doesn't come back, just click on
That's
that.
it. One more time. Undo.
I ain't playing with it. Okay.
Oh,
What did you say, Ryan? That's literally what Carlos does.
Y'all don't understand how my blood pressure shot up like right then. Like you have no idea. This is the one that I always screw up on.
You got him soon. What?
That's not right. That I was trying to draw the adenine structure. I know it's a purine, so it has 2 rings, and there's a nitrogen with a double bond to the carbon here. This part is not right though. But anyway, we're gonna ignore it and pretend like it is. Okay. I know all of this is right. This is the sugar. So this was supposed to be adenine. I'm just gonna write through it because it's jacked up on the structure. I always screw up adenine structure. Drawing those nitrogen bases throws me off every time. All right, so we have how many phosphate groups?
3.
3. All right, and I want you to notice something about those phosphate groups. What do we know about phosphate? It's a polyatomic ion, so it carries a charge. And what is that charge?
-1.
What do we know about negative charges next to each other?
It won't repel.
But in this case, they're being forced to form a bond. So you think that's a stable bond or an unstable bond?
Unstable.
Think it's what?
Unstable.
Unstable. It's very unstable, right? So that means there's going to be high potential energy in that because of the structure. There is a high potential chemical energy because of the structure, because I have those 2 anions bonded to each other, okay? Now, this sugar, just because you do need to know the structure of ATP, what sugar is this? It's a pentose. Let me help you out. ATP is also a
Ribose.
nucleic acid. So this sugar is ribose. How do I know it's ribose? Because right here,
It's not deoxy.
it's not deoxy. All right, so this is ribose. ATP is another nucleic acid. Think about the structure. Nitrogen base, pentose sugar, phosphate group. This is just an RNA nucleotide with 2 additional phosphates on it. That's all ATP is. Now, the bonds between these phosphates are called high energy bonds. Because of their structure, they have a high chemical potential energy. So this bond, especially the bond between the last 2 phosphate groups, will easily undergo hydrolysis. What is hydrolysis used for? To make bonds or break bonds?
Break.
To break bonds. So this phosphate group can easily be released. All right. Now, it's not the actual bonds between the phosphates that's the release of energy, but it's the change in potential energy. Think about it. We don't want to be next to each other. That's a strenuous bond. There's a lot of potential energy there because of structure. So when that bond is released, bam, I release some tension. So I release some of that energy. There's a change in the amount of potential energy. It's at a lower energy state. Okay? So that energy is released. Now, the way ATP works in energy coupling, this phosphate group is not irrelevant. This phosphate group will actually form a bond to whatever reactant is a part of the endergonic reaction. And it forms what's called a phosphorylated intermediate. Okay? Phosphorylated intermediate. The phosphate group that was once a part of ATP will temporarily bond to the reactant in another reaction to phosphorylate that reactant and form what's called a phosphorylated intermediate. What does intermediate mean? It's in the middle. It's not the final reaction. This is what happens in the meantime. It's temporary. Okay? This is a way to direct the energy. Following along. All right. ATP hydrolysis is the exergonic reaction that is coupled most often in the cell to endergonic reactions. Any questions about that? None whatsoever? Any questions about anything so far today? Okay, that's half of chapter 8. We're going to do the other half next time because I feel like y'all brain's about to explode on me right now. I could tell from that over in the window when I said something about phosphorylated intermediate. So we'll pick up at ATP. Yeah, I called you out. We'll pick up at ATP next class. All right? All right. Yeah. That's it. That's a lot of information, Ms. Young. You're throwing it at us hard and fast.